Many people have been taught a simple rule: don't eat at night, because anything after dinner must mean slower metabolism, higher blood sugar, and straight to body fat. And yes, late-night snacking can absolutely backfire. But there's one strange exception, one thing you can take at night that works precisely because your body doesn't digest it the normal way. It doesn't get absorbed like a typical starch, it doesn't behave like sugar, and in a very real sense, it slips past your system like a quiet passenger and then turns into a message. One your gut sends to your immune system, your hormones, your brain, and your metabolism while you're asleep. That exception is something most people have never been shown how to use correctly: unmodified potato starch, also known as a type of resistant starch. Now I'm going to explain what it is, why nighttime matters, how to use it safely, and what to expect. Without hype, without magic promises, just a clear, practical roadmap. Because when people get this right, they often notice improvements that feel almost unfair: steadier energy, better digestion, fewer late-night cravings, a calmer system, and deeper sleep. The reason isn't mysterious, it's microbial, and it starts with a simple idea. Resistant starch is called resistant because it resists digestion. Most carbs get broken down in the stomach and small intestine, absorbed, turned into blood sugar, and they trigger insulin. Resistant starch doesn't play that game. It passes through your stomach, moves through your small intestine, and arrives in your large intestine still intact, like a sealed package. And that's where the real story begins, because once it reaches the colon, it becomes food. Not for you, but for specific beneficial gut bacteria. Those bacteria aren't passive roommates, they're a biochemical factory. They ferment resistant starch and produce powerful compounds called short-chain fatty acids, and the most famous one is butyrate. Butyrate is one of the closest things your body has to an internal repair signal. It helps nourish the cells lining your colon and supports the integrity of your gut barrier, that thin living wall between your inner world and everything you eat. When that barrier is stressed, more inflammatory particles can leak into circulation and your immune system stays on alert. Not dramatically, but like a low-grade alarm you can't turn off. That often shows up as stiff joints, more soreness, brain fog, mood swings, bloating, irritability, and unstable energy. But when the gut lining is supported and the barrier becomes more resilient, many people feel a subtle but meaningful shift. Less inflammation, noise in the body, less stiffness, less soreness, clearer thinking, steadier mood, and smoother digestion. And butyrate doesn't stop there. It's also linked to healthier metabolic signaling, including how your cells respond to insulin. That matters because insulin resistance sits underneath so many modern struggles: stubborn weight gain, fatigue, crashes after meals, constant hunger, especially at night, and that frustrating feeling of "I'm doing everything right and my body won't cooperate." As insulin signaling improves, even a little, people often report fewer cravings, better appetite control, more stable mornings, and fewer energy dips. Not because potato starch is a stimulant and not because it forces anything, but because it changes the conversation happening inside the gut, and your body responds to that new conversation. Now let's talk about why timing matters. Why nighttime? Sleep isn't just rest, it's a biological shift. At night, your nervous system downshifts, tissues recover, your brain does maintenance, and hormonally, many people move into a more repair-oriented pattern. Cortisol tends to fall, repair signals rise, and the body is less focused on handling incoming food. So when you take resistant starch in the evening, you're not loading calories, you're feeding your microbiome during the quiet hours, when your system is already in restorative mode. For some people, that lines up beautifully, and they report deeper sleep, fewer wake-ups, waking more refreshed, less morning grogginess, and a calmer baseline over time. There's also an immune angle here, because a large portion of immune activity is tied to the gut, and when beneficial microbes are supported consistently, immune regulation tends to improve. Fewer exaggerated inflammatory responses, better resilience to stress, steadier recovery. Now, an important credibility point: this isn't a trendy, expensive supplement. You can usually find it in a regular grocery store in the baking aisle, the gluten-free section, or the natural foods area. Online, it's even simpler. You search unmodified potato starch. And here's the critical detail. When you read the ingredients, it should say potato starch only. No potato flour, no modified starch, no instant or pre-cooked versions. If it says modified, put it back. If it says flour, put it back. You want unmodified and you want it used cold, because heat changes the very property you're trying to use. People use potato starch to thicken sauces and bake, but when it's heated, it loses much of its resistant behavior. So for health purposes, the rule is don't heat it, use it cold. Here's how to use it. Start with 1 teaspoon of unmodified potato starch, mix it into cold water, stir, and take it 60 to 120 minutes before bed. If you're sensitive or prone to bloating, start with half a teaspoon and stay there for several days, because your gut bacteria need time to adapt. Ecosystems don't like sudden change. Over time, if you tolerate it well, you can slowly build. But remember, more is not better. More can just mean more gas and discomfort. You can also mix it into cold foods like plain yogurt, kefir, or a cold smoothie, as long as it isn't heated. What should you feel? Some people notice changes within days: less nighttime hunger, smoother digestion, more regular bowel movements, and a deeper sense of sleep heaviness, like their body actually stayed down. Others notice it more gradually. Over 1 to 2 weeks, they report reduced bloating, fewer cravings, more stable mornings, better focus, improved recovery, and that subtle but powerful feeling that their body is finally working with them instead of against them. But be smart about it. This isn't for everyone, and you should use common sense. If you have significant digestive conditions, active IBS flares, SIBO-like symptoms, inflammatory bowel disease, or you're on blood sugar lowering medications, especially for diabetes, talk with your clinician before making changes. And if you try it and feel worse, don't push through. Lower the dose or stop. Your body is giving feedback and you should listen. Because resistant starch isn't a stimulant or a quick fix. It's a signal that tells specific gut bacteria, here's fuel. And when those microbes respond, they produce compounds like butyrate that can support gut integrity, help regulate inflammation, and improve metabolic communication. And sometimes the biggest health shifts don't come from what your body digests, but from what it quietly hears overnight. If you try this, start small, stay consistent, and pay attention to sleep, cravings, digestion, and morning energy. And if you want, share your experience in the comments, because the pattern that helps one person often helps someone else find their way faster. Thanks for listening. Take care of your gut, protect your sleep, and make it a great day.